We've decided to restructure your role, Sierra. Your salary is being cut by 50%, and you'll be moved to a clerical position, Trevor Blackstone said, sliding a new contract across the mahogany conference table. His voice carried that familiar smugness I had grown to despise over the past 5 years. Let's be honest here. We only used you for your looks to close deals. You're done. I sat there in stunned silence, my hands folded in my lap as I processed what was happening. Just 24 hours earlier, I had closed the largest deal in Horizon Marine Group's history. A $1.3 billion contract for 4 custom mega yachts with the Al Rashid Investment Group. The champagne from our supposed celebration dinner still felt fresh on my lips. And now this. My name is Sierra Donovan. I'm 37 years old, and I've dedicated the last 5 years of my life to making Horizon Marine Group the premier luxury yacht manufacturer on the East Coast. I specialized in ultra-luxury yacht sales to high-net-worth international clients, building relationships that took years to cultivate. My office overlooked Boston Harbor, and every morning I watched the sunrise paint the water golden while I prepared for another day of closing million-dollar deals. The Al Rashid contract wasn't just any deal. It was a testament to everything I had worked toward. 4 custom mega yachts, each one a floating palace designed specifically for the client's vision. The negotiation process had taken 18 months, countless trips to Dubai and London, and more late-night phone calls than I could count. But I had made it happen, securing not just the initial sale, but ongoing maintenance contracts and potential future builds that could reach another $1 billion in revenue. I don't understand, I finally managed to say, my voice steady despite the fire building in my chest. This contract represents the biggest success in company history. My commission alone should be... Trevor cut me off with a dismissive wave of his hand. Commission? You think you deserve commission for batting your eyelashes and looking pretty in meetings? Please. The real work was done by our design team and engineers. You were just the pretty face we put in front of rich clients. The other executives around the table, men I had considered colleagues, even friends, avoided my gaze. Some stared at their phones, others shuffled papers, but none of them spoke up. The silence was deafening, and in that moment, I realized just how expendable they had always considered me. But as Trevor continued his condescending speech about my new role, filing paperwork and answering phones, I felt something shift inside me. A calm, calculating energy that reminded me exactly why I had insisted on certain clauses in my original employment contract 5 years ago. Trevor had forgotten something very important, and his arrogance was about to cost him everything. 5 years ago, when I first joined Horizon Marine Group, I wasn't the seasoned sales executive I am today. I had just left my position at Newport Shipyard after a messy departure involving a sexist supervisor who tried to take credit for my work. I was determined never to find myself in that position again, so when Horizon offered me the opportunity to build their luxury yacht division from the ground up, I made sure my contract protected me in ways that most people never consider. My background in maritime law, combined with my MBA from Boston University, had taught me to read between the lines of every agreement. While Trevor and the other executives focused on the standard salary and benefits package, I was inserting clauses that would safeguard my work and my relationships with clients. Clause 51A was buried deep in the legal language, a provision that stated any restructuring or reduction in my role prior to full commission payout would immediately void my client obligations and nullify existing deals I personally closed. At the time, the legal team barely glanced at it. They were more concerned with non-compete agreements and intellectual property protections. But I knew that in the yacht industry, relationships were everything, and I wanted insurance that my work couldn't be stolen from under me. Those first 2 years at Horizon were challenging. I was building a client base from scratch, attending boat shows from Miami to Monaco, networking at exclusive events where a single conversation could lead to a $50 million sale. I learned to speak the language of the ultra-wealthy, understanding their desires for privacy, luxury, and exclusivity. My clients weren't just buying yachts, they were investing in floating status symbols that reflected their success and sophistication. Trevor had been different then. Or perhaps I had been too naive to see his true nature. He seemed supportive of my efforts, even impressed by my early successes. The first major deal I closed was a $40 million yacht for a tech entrepreneur from Seattle. Trevor took me out for dinner to celebrate, telling me I had a bright future at the company. I should have recognized the patronizing undertone, but I was too focused on proving myself. Over the years, my client relationships deepened. The Al-Rashid family became more than just customers. They trusted my expertise and valued my judgment. When they mentioned wanting to expand their fleet, I spent months crafting a proposal that would exceed their expectations. The 4 megayachts weren't just purchases. They were investments in a long-term partnership that could span decades. But as my success grew, so did the resentment from my male colleagues. They began questioning my methods, suggesting that my results were somehow less legitimate because of my gender. The whispers started small: comments about my wardrobe choices, speculation about my client relationships, implications that my success was based on anything other than my skill and hard work. I had tried to ignore the toxic culture brewing at Horizon, focusing instead on my clients and my sales numbers. But sitting in that conference room, listening to Trevor's cruel dismissal of my achievements, I realized that my patience had finally reached its limit. The moment Trevor finished his humiliating speech about my new role, I calmly reached for my phone. His smirk faltered slightly as I began typing, but he continued talking about transition timelines and reduced responsibilities, clearly relishing what he thought was his moment of triumph. "Are you even listening to me?" he snapped, his voice sharp with irritation. "Oh, I'm listening," I replied, not looking up from my phone. "I'm just taking care of some urgent business." What Trevor didn't realize was that I was composing an email to Hassan al-Rashid's legal team, formally invoking Clause 51A of my employment contract. The clause was crystal clear. Any attempt to restructure my position or reduce my compensation prior to full commission payout would immediately void my authority to represent Horizon Marine Group in all existing client relationships. More importantly, it gave my clients the legal right to withdraw from any contracts I had negotiated on Horizon's behalf. I hit send, just as Trevor was explaining how my new clerical duties would begin the following Monday. "I'm afraid that won't be possible," I said, finally looking up from my phone with a smile that made his expression falter. "Excuse me?" "I said that won't be possible, Trevor. You see, 5 years ago when I signed my contract with Horizon, I included several protective clauses. Clause 51A specifically addresses situations exactly like this one." I stood up, gathering my belongings with the same calm professionalism I had maintained throughout his degrading speech. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you just violated the terms of my employment contract by attempting to restructure my role and reduce my compensation before paying out the commissions I'm owed. The Al-Rashid contract I closed yesterday? The one worth $1.3 billion? I just informed their legal team that Horizon no longer has authorization to proceed with that agreement." The color drained from Trevor's face. "You can't do that." "Actually, I can, and I just did." I tucked my phone into my purse and headed toward the door. "The clause was reviewed and approved by your legal team when I signed my original contract. Every single detail was documented and filed with human resources." "Sierra, wait." Trevor's voice had lost all its arrogance, replaced by barely concealed panic. "Let's discuss this rationally. Maybe we were too hasty with the restructuring." "Too hasty?" I turned back to face him, and for the first time in 5 years, I let my anger show. "You told me I was only valuable for my looks. You tried to steal my commission on the biggest deal in company history. You humiliated me in front of my colleagues. There's nothing rational left to discuss." The other executives were frantically whispering among themselves, finally understanding the magnitude of what had just happened. But it was too late. My phone was already buzzing with messages from Hassan al-Rashid's team, confirming receipt of my notification and requesting an immediate meeting to discuss their options. I walked out of that conference room knowing that by Monday morning, Horizon Marine Group would be facing the biggest crisis in its 40-year history, and Trevor Blackstone would finally learn what it felt like to be powerless. By Friday evening, My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Trevor had called 17 times, each voicemail more desperate than the last. The legal department had reached out through 3 different channels, and even the company's founder, Gregory Horizon, had left a message asking for an urgent conversation about what he called a misunderstanding. But there was no misunderstanding. I spent Friday night in my Boston apartment, overlooking the harbor where Horizon's showroom sparkled with lights, methodically reviewing every document related to the Al-Rashid contract. My law degree hadn't gone to waste over the years. I had kept meticulous records of every conversation, every email, every commitment made during the 18-month negotiation process. Saturday morning brought a knock at my door. Through the peephole, I saw Trevor standing in the hallway, looking like he hadn't slept. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled, and his face carried the weight of someone who had spent the night realizing his career was about to implode. "Sierra, please," he said when I opened the door. "We need to talk." "I think you said everything you needed to say yesterday," I replied, not inviting him in. "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. The board is meeting Monday morning, and if the Al-Rashid contract is really void—" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture that would have seemed vulnerable if I hadn't known him for 5 years. The company could face bankruptcy. 40 years of business, hundreds of employees. Interesting that you're suddenly concerned about other people's livelihoods. I leaned against my doorframe, studying his panicked expression. Yesterday you were quite comfortable destroying mine. I was wrong. Completely wrong. Your work on the Al-Rashid account was brilliant. The entire strategy, the relationship building, everything. I let my ego get in the way, and I said things that were inexcusable. He paused, clearly struggling with words that felt foreign in his mouth. "I'm sorry, Sierra. Truly sorry." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Trevor looked genuinely devastated, and despite everything, I had spent 5 years working alongside him. But then I remembered his words from the conference room, the smugness in his voice when he told me I was only valuable for my looks, and my resolve hardened. "Your apology doesn't change what you revealed about yourself and this company," I said quietly. "For 5 years I built relationships, closed deals, and generated millions in revenue. And the moment I achieved something truly extraordinary, you tried to steal the credit and reduce me to a secretary. The board will reinstate your position, your full salary, your commission, everything. We can fix this." I shook my head. "You can't fix trust, Trevor. You can't fix the fact that you showed me exactly how expendable you consider me to be. And you certainly can't fix the legal consequences of violating my contract." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text message from Hassan al-Rashid himself. "Emergency meeting requested for Monday 9 a.m. Dubai time. Contract status requires immediate clarification." "That's my client," I said, showing Trevor the message. "He's requesting clarification about the contract status. By Monday morning, Horizon's biggest deal in company history will officially be canceled, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." Trevor's face went pale. "Sierra, please, think about this rationally. You're not just hurting me. You're destroying the livelihoods of innocent people." "I am thinking rationally," I replied. "I'm thinking about a woman who spent 18 months of her life building something extraordinary, only to be told she was worthless the moment she succeeded. I'm thinking about every other woman who might walk into that conference room after me and face the same humiliation." I stepped back and began closing the door. "Goodbye, Trevor. I'll be watching the news Monday morning to see how the board explains losing $1.3 billion to their shareholders." The door clicked shut, leaving Trevor standing alone in the hallway with the weight of his company's future pressing down on his shoulders. Sunday arrived with an unexpected call from Hassan al-Rashid himself. It was 6 a.m. Boston time, which meant it was already afternoon in Dubai. I had been expecting this conversation, but hearing Hassan's familiar voice still sent a jolt of nervous energy through me. "Sierra, my friend," he said, his English carrying that slight accent that had become so familiar over our 18 months of negotiations. "I received some very concerning communications from your legal department yesterday." "Hassan," I replied, settling into my kitchen chair with a cup of coffee. "I imagine you have questions about the contract status." "Indeed I do. Your message mentioned that Horizon Marine Group no longer has authorization to proceed with our agreement. This is unexpected, given our celebration just 3 days ago." I took a deep breath, knowing that this conversation would determine not just my future, but Hassan's opinion of my professional integrity. "Hassan, I need to share something with you about what happened after our deal was finalized." I explained the entire situation. Trevor's demotion, the salary cut, his degrading comments, and the legal clause that gave me the right to void client contracts under these circumstances. Hassan listened without interruption, and I could almost feel his growing anger through the phone. "This Trevor Blackstone," Hassan said when I finished, his voice tight with controlled fury. "He said you were only valuable for your appearance?" Those were his exact words. A long pause followed. Hassan al-Rashid was a traditional businessman who valued respect and honor above all else. In our 18 months of working together, he had always treated me as an equal, valuing my expertise and judgment. To learn that my own company had disrespected me in such a fundamental way would be deeply offensive to him. "Sierra," he said finally, "in our culture, we have a saying. The tree that bears the most fruit is the one they throw stones at. You have been throwing fruit to ungrateful people. Hassan, I want you to know that this situation doesn't reflect on the quality of the yachts or the design team at Horizon. The product itself is still exceptional." "No," he interrupted firmly. "You misunderstand. I am not concerned about the yachts. Yachts can be built by many companies, but finding someone with your integrity, your vision, your understanding of what we require, this is rare." My heart began racing as I sensed where this conversation was heading. "I have a proposition for you," Hassan continued. "The Al-Rashid Group has been considering establishing our own marine consulting division. We want someone to oversee our yacht acquisitions, work directly with builders, manage our growing fleet. This person would report directly to me, work with unlimited budget, and earn significantly more than any salary at Horizon Marine Group." "Hassan, are you offering me a position?" "I am offering you partnership, Sierra. You would be our director of marine assets, based in Dubai with travel as needed. Your first project would be overseeing the construction of our 4 yachts, not with Horizon, but with whichever builder you recommend. Complete authority, complete trust." The irony was stunning. In trying to diminish my value, Trevor had inadvertently driven my most important client directly to me. Hassan wasn't just rescuing me from a toxic situation. He was offering me the career opportunity of a lifetime. "The salary would be 3 times what you earned at Horizon," he added, "plus equity in our marine division, plus bonuses tied to fleet value appreciation. Are you interested in discussing details?" I looked out my window at Boston Harbor, where Horizon's facility glowed in the morning sun, and smiled. "Hassan, I'm very interested." "Excellent. Can you be in Dubai by Wednesday? We have much to plan." As I hung up the phone, I realized that Trevor's attempt to destroy my career had instead launched me into something far beyond what I had ever imagined possible. Monday morning arrived with all the drama I had anticipated. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 unread emails, most from Horizon Marine Group in various states of panic. But the most interesting message was from Gregory Horizon himself, the company founder who rarely involved himself in day-to-day operations anymore. "Sierra," his voicemail began, "I've been briefed on the situation with Trevor and the Al-Rashid contract. I want you to know that his actions do not represent the values this company was built on. Please call me immediately. We need to discuss how to move forward." Instead of calling back, I got dressed in my best business suit and drove to Horizon's headquarters for what I knew would be the last time as an employee. The building that had been my second home for 5 years suddenly felt foreign, as if I were viewing it through the eyes of a stranger. The lobby was unusually quiet, with security guards stationed at the elevators. Clearly, management was expecting some kind of confrontation. I rode up to the executive floor, where the entire leadership team was gathered in the main conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see heated discussions taking place around multiple tables. Sierra! Gregory Horizon stood up the moment I entered the reception area. At 73, he was still an imposing figure, with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded respect. Thank God you're here. We need to resolve this situation immediately. Mr. Horizon, I replied politely. I assume you've reviewed the details of my contract clause. I have. And I've also reviewed the circumstances that led to its activation. His expression darkened as he glanced toward the conference room where Trevor was gesticulating frantically at a group of board members. What Trevor did was inexcusable, Sierra. Completely inexcusable. I appreciate that acknowledgement. More than acknowledgement, I want to make this right. Trevor is being terminated immediately, effective today. I'm prepared to offer you his position as Vice President of Sales, with a 50% salary increase, full commission on the Al-Rashid deal, and a formal apology from the board of directors. It was a generous offer, more than I had ever expected when I first triggered Clause 51A. But sitting in that reception area, watching the chaos I had unleashed through the conference room windows, I realized that my perspective had fundamentally shifted. Mr. Horizon, I appreciate the offer, but I'm afraid it's too late. His face fell. Sierra, please, be reasonable. This company has been my life's work. The Al-Rashid contract represents our entire expansion plan for the next 5 years. Without it, you'll have to find another way forward, I said gently, just like I had to find another way forward when your leadership team decided I was expendable. What will it take? Name your price. I pulled out my phone and showed him the email I had drafted that morning. Hassan Al-Rashid has offered me a position as Director of Marine Assets for the Al-Rashid Group. I'll be overseeing their yacht acquisitions worldwide, working with whatever builders I choose to recommend. My first decision will be selecting a new partner for their 4-yacht project. Gregory's eyes widened as he read the email details. Sierra, that's an incredible opportunity. It is. And it never would have happened if Trevor hadn't shown me exactly what my future at Horizon would look like. I stood up, extending my hand for a final handshake. I'll be submitting my resignation today, effective immediately. The Al-Rashid contract withdrawal is already in process. As I walked toward the elevator, I could hear the eruption of voices from the conference room behind me. By tomorrow, the industry would be buzzing with news of Horizon's loss and my dramatic career change. But I wasn't looking back anymore. I was looking toward Dubai, toward a future where my expertise would be valued rather than exploited. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in Hassan Al-Rashid's Dubai office, looking out at the Persian Gulf while we finalized contracts with Benetti Yachts in Italy for the 4 mega-yacht project. The irony wasn't lost on me. Horizon had lost a $1.3 billion contract, and I was now overseeing an even larger deal worth $1.8 billion with their competitor. My phone buzzed with a news alert from Marine Industry Weekly. Horizon Marine Group faces financial crisis after losing historic contract. The article detailed how the company's stock had plummeted 40% in 3 weeks, forcing them to lay off 60 employees and cancel their planned expansion into European markets. Trevor Blackstone's name appeared nowhere in the article. According to my former colleagues who still reached out occasionally, he had been quietly terminated the Monday after our confrontation, with the board citing conduct unbecoming and breach of fiduciary duty. His replacement, Jennifer Walsh, had immediately reached out to apologize for Trevor's behavior and ask if there was any possibility of salvaging the Al-Rashid relationship. I had politely declined. Hassan entered the office carrying 2 cups of traditional Arabic coffee, a ritual we had maintained throughout our business relationship. The contracts are finalized, he announced with satisfaction. Benetti will begin construction on the first yacht next month. They estimate 18 months for completion of all 4 vessels. Excellent, I replied, accepting the coffee. And the timeline works perfectly with our fleet expansion plans. Sierra, I have news that might interest you. Hassan settled into his chair with a slight smile. I received a call yesterday from Gregory Horizon himself. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? He wanted to discuss the possibility of Horizon bidding on future Al Rashid projects. Apparently, they are quite desperate for new contracts. Hassan's smile widened. I told him that all marine procurement decisions now go through our Director of Marine Assets. The sweetness of that moment was indescribable. In less than a month, I had gone from being dismissed as a pretty face to holding the power to determine Horizon's future in the luxury yacht market. 6 months into my new role, I was attending the Monaco Yacht Show as the Al Rashid Group's representative when I encountered the full scope of my revenge's impact. The show was the industry's most prestigious event, where yacht builders, designers, and buyers gathered to showcase the future of luxury marine vessels. I was examining a stunning new super yacht when a familiar voice called my name. Turning around, I saw Jennifer Walsh, Trevor's replacement at Horizon, approaching with what looked like forced enthusiasm. "Sierra, it's wonderful to see you here," she said, though her smile seemed strained. "How are you enjoying your new position?" "Very much," I replied warmly. Jennifer wasn't responsible for Trevor's actions, and I held no animosity toward her. "How are things at Horizon?" Her expression faltered slightly. "We're rebuilding. The Al Rashid situation created some challenges, but we're working through them." What she didn't say was what everyone in the industry already knew. Horizon Marine Group was struggling to survive. The loss of the Al Rashid contract had triggered a cascade of financial problems. Their expansion plans had been canceled, their workforce reduced by 30%, and several smaller clients had shifted their business to competitors after learning about the company's internal culture problems. "I wanted you to know," Jennifer continued, "that we've implemented new policies to ensure that what happened with Trevor never happens again. HR has mandated sensitivity training, we've restructured our commission system to be more equitable, and we've brought in external consultants to review our workplace culture." "That's good to hear," I said sincerely. "The industry needs companies that value all their employees." Jennifer nodded, then hesitated before adding, "If you ever consider returning to yacht sales in the United States..." I smiled politely, but said nothing. My future was no longer tied to companies that had to learn the hard way how to treat their people with respect. That evening, as I watched the sunset over Monaco Harbor from the deck of Hassan's newest acquisition, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed. Trevor's attempt to humiliate me had instead catapulted me into a position of influence I never could have imagined at Horizon. The best revenge, I realized, wasn't just escaping a toxic situation. It was thriving so completely that your former oppressors could only watch from the sidelines as you soared beyond their reach.